Okay, now more than ever, it serves for you to really focus on your mind state, your energy, your emotions. See, you have to understand you don't just have a physical body, you have a spiritual body that breaks into many branches: etheric body, light body, mental body, emotional body, astral body. That goes into when you're in your physical sleep state, then your consciousness chooses what body to go to based on your intentions and your frequency. Now, what does this have to do with who you are and why this shift is extremely important? Well, you have to understand where you are as it pertains to your actual environment. See, we are in the United States of America. And for those that are in their respective, countries and things of that nature, we all have something in common, which is we are either indirectly or directly being governed. Now, with Americas specifically, we are being governed by beings that prioritize psyops and psychological techniques and tasks to bring over a will of dominance over the people it's supposedly supposed to be governing. But I just transmute that word governing to oppressing. See, if you look into how many millions and billions of dollars that the United States government funds for its psychological evaluations and techniques and tasks, then you'll also connect the dots to figure out that there is declassified documents called the Gateway Project, right? You have two. You have the Stargate and you have the Gateway Project, okay? The Gateway Project, that I actually have it, and I'll show you as well. It's very, very potent. It breaks down what the brain is capable of. Then it breaks down what consciousness is capable of. And it does it all in a tangible way. In the beginning of it, it says to a U.S. Army commander. So that means that the commander and his higher-ups found it interesting to figure out how to weaponize the consciousness for what they label in the public terms espionage, essentially meaning, hey, if we can send out our soldiers without them having bodily harm, then that will be a good priority for us. So that's what the paper says. But when you really study deep into this, then you'll recognize that that's not really all the way true. So the Gateway Project, to this commander, in the beginning, it breaks down tangible scientific things about the brain, the psyche, and consciousness. Then towards the end, it literally says this is where the fun begins, or fun starts, as it pertains to consciousness. And it has everything broken down. At the end of this video, I'm going to post that Gateway Project in the specific parts I'm referencing. So it talks about time and space, right? Now this, to astral projection masters like myself, this is something that we've been knowing, all right? It's very interesting seeing it from a scientific and government perspective, because you have to understand government only cares about power. So when it gets to the time and space parts, it's talking about what dimensions are. It's talking about the hologram of this world. It literally uses the word hologram. It's talking about all of these things under the ruse of espionage tactics. And then when we connect certain dots, we see that this research and the Stargate research is the official weaponization of this hand-in-hand type of what can we do with out-of-body experiences. Oh, in the Gateway Project, the declassified document, you literally see it has an out-of-body section. And it also talks about the breathing patterns. They call it color breathing, that they literally teach their operatives to have quicker out-of-body experiences, because when they quote unquote, go on these espionage missions, they need you to get out your body fast. So they say the colors blue and yellow, when you visualize those in your mind and you do particular breathing exercises alongside some hemi-syncing, so making both sides of the brain and consciousness come in union. They talk about that in the Gateway experience, in the Gateway project. They do all of these techniques together, and then you have a quicker out-of-body experience. Now, we tie all of this in with the billions, with a B, billions of dollars that the government puts into the psychiatric techniques and evaluations. Then we see that these psyops from these non-profits, NGOs, and you also have your all these three-letter societies, okay? You have all of these people destabilizing governments over here in this country and destabilizing over here in this country. How you destabilize is through music and through propaganda. Music and propaganda is the two ways you destabilize a country. It's the two ways that you destabilize cities or even a people. Music and propaganda. Enough propaganda will get enough people to believe something, and music gets that same ideology on repeat. So you're now unconsciously and consciously teaching yourself at the same time. That's why music is so powerful. That's why music nowadays, right after the crack epidemic, is all about drugs. There is a direct correlation within all of this, right? Because it's all about your mind. This is extremely important. This entire thing is about you have to understand it serves for you to prioritize your mind. Okay? It serves for you to prioritize your mind, prioritize your spiritual growth. Listen to teachers like me and your respective teachers like Michael Murdad, Ryan Cropper, Yaki Awaken. You have your Malcolm X's. There's so many. Study the stories of Yeshua. Don't just study it from one person's perspective, because that's just control. Study it from all people's perspectives, because Yeshua traveled the world. There's so many things. Buddha. Study all of these people and the stories. Get the moral out of it. And really understand it's a matter of your mind. Now, we haven't even touched the Vatican. The Vatican, there's an operation called Operation Gladio. All right. And the CIA and the Vatican came together in Operation Gladio to destabilize cities and countries, because they have the rules of communists and there are enemies and stuff. Then when you start doing research on the Vatican has its own laws. The Vatican has its own rules. The Vatican don't pay any taxes. The Pope is like at one point in time, his name was like Potimus Maximus. It was some type of absolute type of name. The word Maximus was literally in the Pope's name. And then when you do research on that, you see that the Pope specifically, it says the word adopted that title. So that means, from the research, the Pope is his own entity, in that Maximus term of being the King of Kings and all of this type of stuff, right? That was added on top. It was like a multiplier for a video game. So the Pope already has his own multipliers and own sliders and own skills. And then you have, throw Maximus on it. Bam! King of King, all of this, right? On top of that, on top of, you have the Vatican, right? The Vatican, they say it's over 50 miles worth of shelving and information. You're not going to sit here and tell me that 50 miles of information is just Roman information or just Greek information. No, they even say that in the Vatican they have tons of Egyptian stuff. If they have, which they do, other cultures' items, then that means they have other cultures' items. So the Vatican has miles, literally 50 plus miles of information regarding their history and everybody else's. And all I say is extremely weird. They say hide things in plain sight. Okay, cool. My only priority is, hey, I'm going to look at it long enough, and if I look at it long enough and the water becomes murky, then something is there. Now, some people, when they hear the Vatican stuff, they say, okay, well, first, what does that have to do with me? Two, why is it important? Okay, let's address those. What does it have to do with you? Let's go back. Ancient times. Christian scholars, Wesley Huff, specifically on the Joe Rogan podcast, and if he said it on the Joe Rogan podcast, I'm pretty sure his colleagues and peers also came to that same conclusion, because he seems like one of those type of people to make sure we are all unanimously agreeing with a particular ideology. He said out his own mouth that Jesus was a traveling magician, and everybody that came out of Egypt knew about magic, and when you go to Egypt, you pretty much came out a magician when you walked certain pathways. That's what Wesley Huss was talking about, and I'm paraphrasing ever so slightly. So what does that tell us? That means that, yes, we're highlighting Egypt. Egypt literally created magicians and people that were miracle walkers and miracle workers, all of that. But I'm not just highlighting them. That means that the consciousness was there. There's a much bigger and broader picture. That means the consciousness was there in Egypt, okay? But if it was there on earth, period, that means elsewhere it's there as well. When you understand how consciousness actually works, and you understand how the source works ever so slightly, you recognize that God does not just send one idea to one group of people or one person. Source sends it to everybody, and whoever picks up on the frequency, pick up on that frequency. You even hear Michael Jackson talking about something called the alpha state. And you also hear Michael Jackson saying, I got to make this song that God sent me before Prince gets it, or another artist gets it, meaning he understands that source is sending this to everybody. So this is why consciousness is important in context when you actually study the metaphysical ideas and philosophies, and you actually astral project every night like me and actually speak to these spirits. If you're telling me that the consciousness on earth at the time of quote unquote Yeshua in their stories, he became a walking magician like the Christian scholars say, based upon the information from Egypt because everybody knew, what you're telling me is that that information is still readily available because it was all over the world based on how the principles and laws of consciousness works. So then when you tie in the Vatican, what does it have to do with you? If every single person had that power or access to it, it would destabilize authority. Not just governments, authority, period. It will destabilize it. If every single person had the access to the information that I have access to, that another master has access to, and this master and that master, and it gets widespread, that destabilizes authority, period. Because contrary to popular belief, God is not authority. God is. It's not is, insert something else. God simply is. It's not what you consider authority. Because source will grant you what you deem as serving, whether it's beneficial or not beneficial for you, is based on you. Because at the end of the day, you're still going to make it back home, back to the source, back to what you consider heaven. You're still going to make it back home. That's why spirits say in the astral world, free will doesn't actually exist. They say if you utilize the term will, call it divine will. Divine will means we give you an infinite amount of ways to operate, but it's always the same destination, no matter if you're heinous or holy. You're going back home to God. That's the destination. So when we tie all of this together, it's important for you to know this stuff because they thought it was important to hide it from you. How sheepish do you have to be to say, oh, I don't think this is important, that the Vatican has over 50 miles worth of information and took so much ancient artifacts that could teach me about how to become one with God. And in alignment with that, they are sovereign. They don't pay taxes. They have all these religious exempts. The Pope is the Pope plus a Maximus title. They see themselves as the king of all kings. They see themselves as having all of this divine authority so they can do whatever they want because they literally have their own laws. On top of that, you have the government behind your back doing all of these psyops, and then you actually have missions of them together on record. One of the on records is Operation Gladio of the Vatican and the CIA actually working together. If it happened one time, it happened more than once. Okay? That is just logical. That's how the government works. The government has over 12 million documents as it pertains to what is classified, and only around 2% is actually declassified. So we're not going to act like this isn't important. And then what does this have to do with you, or why is it important? It's important because you have the divine right, because you're made in the image of God. So you have the divine right to know this information. Revolution actually starts with the spirit form. It does not start with the physical form. When they say leave the game, leave the system, where are you going to go? The game and the system is physicality. So this is part one, right? And this part one, let's call it a pre-part. Let's call this an introduction to the information that we're going to be presenting moving forward, of why it's important to have this information. Let's just call this the introduction. Maybe part one of the introduction. And let's do it like that. This is going to be the longest video, and then we're going to break it down into these subcategories, right? But it's extremely important for you to know all of this information, because there is so much going on that you have to recognize. Don't be a sheep and say, there is no need for me to protect my mind, when all the people that have the quote-unquote power in oppressing you finds it very, very important to drop the guns and pick up the mental power. Don't you think that's very interesting, how America suddenly isn't so focused on war like they once was, and now they're much more focused, billions of dollar type focus, on spiritual techniques, Gateway Project, Declassified Document, Stargate Project, Declassified Document, Operation Gladio, destabilization with the Vatican. You have all of this type of stuff that revolves around the psyche and propaganda and music and spiritual power and spiritual authority, and them hiding spiritual things from you. Don't you think it's interesting how you don't have a lot of people that supposedly astral project make it to the Vatican and dive deep? It's very interesting that they have some type of security there that doesn't allow you to go as far as you may think, or what have you. So this is important for everybody to recognize, whether you believe it or not. You want to talk about the black community, you want to talk about the white community, you want to talk about all your color communities, right? You want to talk about revolution. Revolution is spiritual. You know, Kendrick said in the Super Bowl, the revolution is going to be televised. The entire Super Bowl, his entire halftime performance was extremely spiritual, is extremely spiritual, tons of symbolism, even hangman tarot card symbolism. Like, once I seen the hangman tarot card symbolism with the dude on the light pole, because the shadow is the exact placement and figure of the tarot card of the hangman. So when you see stuff like that, you understand it's extremely spiritual. He's gone that far. So it's spiritual. How much more do we have to tell you? It is spiritual. The revolution is spiritual. You look at all of the omens. You have the Jesus coming back and all of that. Look at the omens for that. You know, look at the rivers in certain places in Egypt turning all red. Look at, in this month, you have all of these solar type of events coming back to back to back to back to back in astrology. Look at all of this type of stuff. Look at me, a son of God, coming out with all of this information. One son of God, when there's many sons of God, many daughters of heaven. There's no coincidence that I suddenly got this inspiration now to make videos like this. It is all a part of the prophecy. Look at the prophecy surrounding Buddha. Look at the prophecy surrounding Malcolm X. Look at the prophecy surrounding Nadiie. Look at the prophecy surrounding the Rainbow Warriors. If you understand the Rainbow Warriors, you understand that it has nothing to do with sexuality. The rainbow logo got hijacked by the alphabet people. And that is also a psyop that we will dive deep into. So it's so much going on. And then we haven't even touched the fact that Adolf and the Vatican people, they met together. We're not tackling that the U.S. met with him as well. We're not tackling that he was into the occult and all of the spiritual stuff as well, because he's seen it important to focus on the psyche and spiritual techniques and the spiritual perspective. If everybody in power is focused on spirituality, why aren't you? That lets me know they're in power because of their spiritual focus. And spiritual is not good or bad. Spiritual is just non-physical. So everybody else that's in power is focused on the non-physical. So focus on the non-physical. This is the part one of this introduction. We're going to call this Beyond Plain Sight.